Welcome to the Google Teacher Tribe podcast, your source for the latest news on Google for education, tips, tricks, and teaching ideas you can use in class tomorrow. And here are your hosts, Matt Miller from DitchThatTextbook.com and Kasey Bell from ShakeUpLearning.com.
Hey y'all, we are excited to get started on episode 23. And you know, Matt and I, we definitely share a lot in common, and we talk a lot about the things that we're interested in, and especially the books that we're reading. And so, Matt, I want to know what's on your reading list right now?
Oh man, I've got so much stuff that I haven't read that I'm interested in digging into, but I've got this one book. It's called Intention, Critical Creativity in the Classroom, and it's written by Amy Burvall and Dan Ryder. Amy Burvall, who I've followed on Twitter forever, and Dan Ryder, who's a friend and a guy I also have followed on Twitter for a while. And this is just this fascinating, enormous book of all of these ways that you can bring creativity into the classroom. And of course, both of the authors are just supremely talented artists. And so like Amy Burvall's sketches and Dan Ryder's doodles and all of this stuff are just kind of all throughout the book. And so it's got some really like actionable things you can do in the classroom too. So that one is right at the top of my list. How about you?
I'm definitely going to have to add that one to my list. I have met Amy several times, and I would love to meet Dan. I think they are both creative minds that just fascinate me. I'm sure this book is just loaded with ideas for the classroom. So I'm going to share something that I am super excited about that actually has nothing to do with the classroom. At least it's not geared towards the classroom, but it made a call to me, so to speak. And as I was thumbing through some of the devotionals in the YouVersion Bible app that I use on my phone, I discovered this one called Called to Create. And it's based on, helping guide Christian entrepreneurs into creativity and creative jobs and, finding your calling through that. And I just really, like I said, called out to me, and I was like, oh, this is great. Where is the book? And so I went to Amazon, and lo and behold, it was on pre-order. So it hasn't even come out, and I'm already excited about it. And I just really want to dig in and find out how I can better be of service with what I'm doing, and how I can be creative and reach more people. So I'm really excited about that one, and I hope that you guys have some interesting books that you can share with us as well. So feel free to do that and use the Google Teacher Tribe hashtag GT Tribe. I have a giant stack of books, though, I have to fully admit, staring me in the face right now. So the fact that I'm talking about one of the books that's not even out when I have all of these that I want to read. So my list is huge, but I would love to hear what's on everybody's reading list.
Yeah, you know what the cure is to your addiction to books is more books. It's
right.
Like making the stack taller, Yeah, exactly. I'm exactly the same way. And this Called to Create book is right at the top of my list too. So we've got an episode to do, don't we?
We do. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, we are going to talk about one of my favorite things related to Google and something you can do with it that I love too. The tool we're talking about is Google Drawings and how you can make your thinking visual. So we've got all sorts of very practical, very creative ideas that you can use in the classroom. And we've got, of course, our news and updates. We've got some questions from our listeners and some blog posts. So let's get at it.
All right, let's jump into the Google News and Updates section. So we have been bombarded with updates over the summer and, of course, playing catch up a little bit here on the podcast. So today's episode feels a little closer to normal in terms of what we have to announce and not as huge as some of the updates that we've had in the past few weeks. But I want to share with you a Gmail update that I think is pretty interesting, and I think it will be a big time saver. So Gmail and Inbox will now begin creating links of contact information that it finds in your inbox. So in terms of phone numbers and addresses and those things will become links that you can either from your phone click on the number and dial and call directly, or the address, click on it and automatically take you to maps. Now, of course, this also makes it easier to save time from having to copy and paste, whether you're on desktop, mobile, whatever you're on. We spend a lot of time copying and pasting contact information, email addresses, all of those things from one place to the next. So I think this feature is going to make my life easier. So I'm pretty excited to try this out.
Yeah, seems pretty intuitive. So I'm glad that they pulled the trigger and made that happen. And so another thing that is pretty neat has to do with Google Earth. Now, when you use Google Earth, obviously you can zoom in on the Earth and you can use it. You can use the satellite view and the 3D view and everything to see things. But now, as Google said in its news release, now you can see the world through someone else's lens. So what people can do now is they can upload their photos. They've actually been able to do this in Google Maps for a while, but they're able to upload their own photos and tag them on Google Earth. And so now the next time you pull up Google Earth, there should be a spot along the left where you can flip a little switch and turn on photos. And now you're able to go click on and look at other people's photos. And see, this is especially interesting to me because I use Google Maps Street View all the time, where it lets you drop yourself down on the street and kind of walk around all over the world. And one of the things I've noticed is that there are a lot of places where Google Maps Street View exists, but there's a lot of places where it doesn't. And so if you have those photos from other people, sometimes you're able to see what it looks like down on the street or down on the ground in these places that the Google car couldn't drive around and capture images. So this seems like a pretty cool update.
Yeah, I like it. And I love the fact that this is, not only crowdsourcing, but I think this will bring some interesting perspectives into the classroom as well. And hopefully allowing students to not only explore the world through someone else's eyes, but, contribute to this as well.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're interested in some more, we have some links to more information at our show notes at googleteachertribe.com/23. Well, let's dig into this tool that I love so much that has so much potential, and that is Google Drawings. We're going to be talking specifically about visual thinking, ways that you can pull images in, different visuals to connect to what it is that you're thinking about and talking about. And I really feel like Google Drawings is kind of like the go-to Google tool for this. And there's good reason too. Whenever, brain science tells us that whenever you put images and text together, it's always stickier in the brain because your brain already thinks in images anyway. And whenever you speak or whenever you read text, it has to translate it into images. And so whenever we can put those two together, it's just, inherently more powerful learning. And Google Drawings is just an easy way to do that. I always felt like Google Drawings is kind of like a digital poster board. And it's really simple to use because there's only just a handful of tools. You've got lines, shapes, text, and images. So the barrier to entry, kind of like the learning curve, is really low whenever teachers and students are learning it. And there's so much that you can do with Google Drawings. I mean, the potential is really huge, isn't it, Kasey?
Absolutely. It is what I often call the unsung hero of G Suite.
Yes.
People don't like the fact that it takes like an extra little click to open it inside G Suite. But what I wish Google would develop is the template gallery for drawings, because I feel like that's a huge missing piece that would help connect the dots for teachers and students. Because the first time I opened up Google Drawings, I was like, what's this?
Right.
I was like, there's like 5 tools across the top and there's this big blank canvas. What do I do with this? Like, it wasn't inherently something that I naturally thought about ways to use. So honestly, it wasn't until I started working towards becoming a Google certified trainer where that kind of forced me to learn some of the tools inside drawings a little bit more. I was like, oh, okay, light bulb goes off. I'm like, this is kind of endless, what we can do with this. And so I really wish that, we had that universal template gallery like we have for docs and sheets and slides and forms and everything, so that teachers could grab those and use them easily, but also make those connections on how great it is for the classroom. There's just so many things. And honestly, when we were planning this, you and I both were like, oh, this could go so many directions. So, we are sort of purposely sticking with the visual thinking idea here because, we could do so many sessions on infographics, on graphic organizers. We could do all kinds of things just about virtual manipulatives that you can create inside Google Drawings. So, yes, totally agree. The ideas are endless. And so I think one of my favorite ideas and something that I do a lot is annotate on top of images. And, that can take many forms. I know for me, I annotate on screenshots a lot, and that's easily done, easy to bring in different images, to layer them on top of each other. Matt has a great example, and Matt, don't let me Tex-Mex the Spanish here. How do you pronounce this?
El Tres de Mayo.
El Tres de Mayo. So,
nicely done.
Yes, thank you. My name was Margarita in Spanish class. So, Margarita Bell, it just rolls off the tongue, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So, no, but this is a great example that you can access in the show notes. And so Matt, tell me exactly what this is depicting here.
Oh, yeah. So this is a kind of a big important painting when you're talking about Spanish culture. And it was painted by Francisco Goya, like decades or centuries ago. And so I was able to find the image just through doing a simple, images search through Google Drawings. Go to insert images and then use the search. And so I pulled that in and then was able to just add all of these little tags, just using like little text boxes, and basically was able to label what we know about the painting. And so there's about 5 of these little labels with some arrows on them. So talk about, annotation on images. This is pretty simple. This is kind of like cutting a picture out of a magazine and putting some little tags on it and pointing arrows over to it. So it can really be done pretty simply.
Yes, I like the annotating on top of images. I think too, in terms of with my language arts brain, bringing sort of the text to life in other ways and being able to tell the story in a new way and making this interactive, because in Google Drawings, not only can we, add these labels and add text and images, but we can also add links and, help to extend the learning beyond just what drawings can even offer. We can connect the dots to so many other resources.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's a really good one. Now, if you want to take this idea of annotating images to the next level, we can go in the direction of photo comic strips. So I ran across a website by Mike Petty, who's an educator in Michigan. And he was talking about how you can bring photos into slides, or in this case, into Google Drawings, and almost make them into these comic strips where the photos of the students are the stars of them. So on pretty much any device, there's a way to shoot a picture by going through the image tool. So if you're working off of a laptop or a Chromebook, you can go to insert image and then use take a snapshot. And then of course, if you're using a mobile device, it's really easy to take a picture and then you can just pull it into your Google Drawing. So imagine that you take a picture of yourself or of students taking pictures of themselves, and then they stick it onto a Google Drawing. Remember, a Google Drawing looks kind of like just like a blank poster board. And so you put that picture up in maybe the top left quadrant or quarter of the poster board. Now with that picture there, let's add some shapes. So if you insert the shapes, there's a variety of different things that you can add, and one of them is a speech bubble. And so if you add a little speech bubble right next to your head, now you can say what it is that you're saying. You can add a thought bubble. You can, pull in a variety of different pictures and layer them on top of each other. And so you do that with one picture. Then let's add a second picture and a third picture and a fourth picture and do the same thing. And if you do that, basically what you've got is a 4-panel comic strip. And I think the education connection to this, there's tons of it, because if you're studying a story or anything in history, I mean, you know, that's a really easy way to retell it. You could have conversations with historic mathematicians or scientists, or you could have students talking out through speech bubbles how they would solve a problem. I mean, it kind of goes on and on and on. So this is another one of those really, really cool ways that I love to show people.
Yes. And, you know, I really want to share a story, and I'm hoping I haven't shared this before, because I tell this one all the time. This was one of my favorite activities that I did with my 8th graders. And during the teaching of Edgar Allan Poe, I had my students use a comic strip maker. This was before we had Google Drawings, so bear with me. And they had to retell the Telltale Heart in their own words. And so this was something really me just kind of taking a risk and not really knowing what this was going to do. But it became very interesting because we had a shift in the imagery used, and a lot of their comic strips became comedies.
Really?
Whereas
Wow.
we all know the Telltale Heart in its original intention is definitely not a comedy, but that was a teachable moment, and it became one of the most powerful things that I did in class that year. I was really proud of what they accomplished, and it showed like a deeper understanding of the text, because in order to retell it in a different way or from a different perspective or, you know, different point of view, you really do have to have that deeper level of understanding. So I think it's really a fun way to tell the stories, whether it's actually a comic strip or, you know, these kind of labeled images and things like that. So that was just really a fun project that I did with my students.
Wow, I love that. That's amazing. And that also goes to show what happens whenever you take something originally and then remix it. I mean, just the ability to kind of make something your own and own it and change it around a little bit, I think is really, really cool. So that's a great story.
Well, no, and I'll tell you, because this was still in my very early teaching years, and I was using tech for tech's sake. I found a tool and wanted to use it. I just lucked out that it turned into something very, very worthwhile. So full confession there on that it you know, but that's also sort of the putting your neck out and taking a risk to try something. Sometimes the learning can actually, you know, take on a life of its own when you do that.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how sometimes great learning can happen even if we don't have the best laid plans?
Right.
Yeah. So another way that we can use Google Drawings that I am totally in love with and use all the time myself has to do with making infographics. And of course, I'm sure you've seen infographics kind of all over the web. Pinterest has those big, tall, long infographics. And Google Drawings is a fantastic way to do it, because you can make the text, you can add in some shapes to kind of like, you know, to kind of break your white space up a little bit. But then you can also bring in images. And that's one of the things I love about infographics, is that you've got all of these little icons a lot of times that pair the visual with the text, kind of like what I was saying at the beginning of this. And one of my favorite places to get those icons is this website called the Noun Project. That's the Noun, Noun project.com. And so the way it works is you've got more than 1 million icons that you can search through, and you can download them and use them for free as long as you attribute it. So you basically have to say who the artist is and that you got it from the nounproject.com. And so when I pull those in with all of the, you know, hundreds or thousands or whatever it is of fonts that are available through Google, and you mix in colors and you kind of lay in colors and shapes and stuff on top of things, those infographics can end up looking pretty fancy, all just done through Google Drawings. And in the show notes at googleteachertribe.com/23, I've got a link to the Noun Project, but also to one of the infographics that I made that I like the most. I know this will make some of you groan, but I went to a conference not too long ago where they did a new take and a remix on the old Madeline Hunter lesson plan. So if that makes you groan, then at least look at it for the sake of looking at the infographic, because I made one that just kind of illustrates all the different steps. And so there's a link to that on the show notes, or you can just go to ditchthattextbook.com/1 Hunter. And so you can go check that out. But I can see all sorts of academic connections on this. You know what I mean?
Yes, I love infographics. So that's something I spend a lot of time creating myself. Now, I think there are very different approaches to this, but I think it's especially good at helping kids understand data in new ways. When it's broken down, and that's, I think, sort of at its very inception. A lot of infographics tend to be around data, and I think that's another great connection that we can bring in. But I love graphic organizers. I like making them. I like reading them. They help me absorb the information faster, doing that dual coding thing that you were mentioning earlier. But inside Google Drawings, what I love, and I didn't know this for the longest time. Again, I'm just full of confessions today. So, Google Drawings, you go to File, Page Setup, and you can change the size to make it something exact. But what I didn't realize is that down in the bottom right-hand corner, you can click and drag. And so you can resize it as it grows. And that's something that I struggle with when I'm creating graphic organizers, because like you said, oftentimes they're very long and skinny. And so mine just keep getting longer and longer and longer. And what I love about using Google Drawings is that makes it so much easier. Instead of me having to guess at okay, what size do I really need it to be? I can really just play with it and be a little more hands-on to make it fit. So I think that was a great little tip that I wished I had learned earlier on in my Google Drawings experience. But, a lot of people don't notice. You have to actually have the mouse on I believe, the background itself to see the little triangle in the bottom right. And so one of my favorite little tips for Google Drawings.
Yeah. And, you can obviously resize that as necessary. But see, I'm going to come full circle here and refer back to this book that I was just telling you about. In this book, Intention, Critical Creativity in the Classroom, they say creativity craves constraints. So if you were able to stay within that size and then only add the stuff that was the most important, that's a whole different take that you can take on it. So if you want that flexibility to change your size, you can, or you can use it as a constraint to really bring out that creativity. So yeah, I love that. That was great.
That's awesome. And Matt, you actually have a great resource that I use a lot when I do any presentations on Google Drawings on some free graphic organizer templates that people can use. So there's 15 of these, I think. And I love these. And I love, like I said, because I wish there was a template gallery. So there's not one, but guess what? Matt made one for you. So, Matt, tell us what kind of graphic organizers are in this list.
So basically, I started out with 15. And this is honestly one of my most popular blog posts of all time. I think it's got more than 1,000 shares just between Pinterest and Facebook combined. And basically, this was on a snow day. I sat down and I created all of these graphic organizers in Google Drawings. I made simple ones like Venn diagram and a timeline. Did some more complex stuff like a character map or Cornell note-taking or the Freyer model. And so they're all basically, there's links to them off of this blog post. And so if you click on one, it forces you to make a copy into your own Google Drive. And so the way that these work a lot of times is that you customize them the way that you want your students to get them. And then you make a copy for the students. And there's a couple ways to do that. You can either just attach your graphic organizer to an assignment in Google Classroom. And of course, when you do that, you have that little drop-down menu at the right that lets you make a copy for each student. And so that's just custom made, it almost feels like, for these graphic organizers. If you don't have that option, then you could share a link with your students to the graphic organizer, but just give them view rights. And then they can obviously just go to File, make a copy. Or you can even take the URL up at the top, the link to the graphic organizer, and change everything at the end of it from the word edit on. You just delete out the word edit and you change it to copy. So if you put copy at the end of that URL, then that'll force them to make a copy. So there's a couple ways to get them their own personal copy of this so that they can fill it in and kind of work them through their own thinking. So those are some of the things that I've got on that particular post.
Well, I have to hold myself back because I think we could keep talking about Google Drawings for hours.
Right.
So we're going to have to save some of this for some future episodes. But we do have some additional resources. We both have lots of resources that we have created or that we use all the time when it comes to Google Drawings. So we wanted to make those available to you in the show notes, googleteachertribe.com/23. I have a free Google Drawings cheat sheet, direct link. You can go grab that little PDF, and that can help you and your students learn about all the little tools inside Google Drawings. And Matt has an entire manifesto on Google Drawings. You want to explain that?
Yeah, this is where I've written so many different little blog posts about things you can do, like visual note taking and interactive posters and, all of these things. And so I just pulled them together in one kind of like epic blog post called the Google Drawings Manifesto for Teachers. And so that's just a huge blog post with some of my best stuff for Google Drawings. So yeah, that's there and all these other links. And you can find those, of course, at our show notes at googleteachertribe.com/23. The Google Teacher Tribe podcast is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more great education podcasts, go to edupodcastnetwork.com.
Well, the tribe never fails to stump us. We get questions all the time and feedback from all of you that we would love to help answer on the podcast. So just a reminder, if you didn't know this, you can go to googleteachertribe.com/feedback, and you can actually leave us a voicemail through SpeakPipe. And it's pretty cool to be able to play your voice on the podcast. So if you have a great question and you want us to answer it, please feel free to go to the website and do that.
And did you catch how we kind of phrase that? It's like your question is a good question, but if it's a question done on the voicemail, it's even better.
Let's not. Yeah, it's better. It's better. Yeah, we're not knocking your questioning strategies.
No, of course. That's right. Not at all.
So our first question is from Meghan Eberhart from Edina, Minnesota. And Megan says, love the podcast. You do such a great job of sharing ideas on how to use Google that I can share with teachers the next day. I work with 6 elementary buildings supporting teachers and students with their techniques.
Bless her heart.
One thing that, yes, bless her heart. One thing that we saw this year was editing videos in YouTube will be going away on the 20th. And I've been looking for a new editor. Any ideas on what tool I can use and share with teachers that is cloud-based? So, Matt?
So I used to love this because it was easy to pull all of these videos from all over YouTube that were set as Creative Commons. So kids could even create these kind of like video montages with it. But sadly, like Megan mentioned, it is gone. So when it comes to, and we'll be interested to see your feedback on this too, because I'm kind of scouting out replacement options on this also. But the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is WeVideo for me. So WeVideo will let you take video clips and put them in order like that and put little transitions and text and all of that. And then you can save your video as a video project, like an actual video file, and then stick it on YouTube or whatever. But WeVideo, the free version of it, does have limitations as far as the number of minutes that you can use per month. So there is that limitation where the YouTube editor didn't have that. So I'd say that's probably my number one recommendation of things that I'm familiar with. But of course, if you're listening and you've got a better suggestion or maybe just a different suggestion, then definitely either shoot us some feedback or tweet at us on the GT Tribe hashtag on Twitter, and we'll be glad to share those.
WeVideo was the first thing that came to mind for me. I love the fact that it's web-based and that it saves to Google Drive.
Right.
So that's a huge selling point. They can log in with their Google accounts. And yes, there is a free version. I think it's a pretty decent version when you compare what things are free and what things are not. So keep that in mind. But I know a lot of schools have invested in that as well and buying the full version for their teachers. So I think WeVideo is a great solution for that.
Yeah, and I just pulled it up, and it shows that the free version gives you 5 minutes of published time per month. So if you're wanting to do like one video project per month, this is going to be good. You've got a gig of cloud storage, and they've got a 22-song music library, and you can even download to the computer. But some of the editing features and green screen and screencasting and all of that aren't supported on the free version. So those are kind of the details on WeVideo. Second question, and this one comes from Becca Glassberg from the Bronx, New York, and she even tells us at the beginning, quick question. This is a quick one, and it actually is a quick one. She says, if I post an assignment to individual students in Google Classroom, will that assignment show up on just their calendars and not other students' calendars? Because Google Classroom does do those calendar notifications automatically based on their assignments. And so, Kasey, what's the answer to that question?
The answer is no. So I did go ahead and test this and double check this, but I think we would have a monster on our hands if every student could see individual assignments that way. So in the brilliance of Google Classroom and the connection of those assignment due dates back to the calendar that is connected to that class, only the students who were given that assignment should actually see that on their calendar. Now, if anybody has experienced something different, please let me know. And we definitely want to report that, because that would be a glitch and would sort of negate the whole way that this is supposed to work, and us being able to differentiate and give these assignments through Google Classroom.
Totally agree. So thankfully, that quick question had a quick, easy answer.
So we have one more question, right?
Yes, we do.
So we have a question from Tim Baker from Frankfort, Kentucky, and he has STLP students, which we had to look this up to make sure we were correct, Student Tech Leadership Program. So he has this tech team of students who have repeating tasks to complete each day, checking computer labs, updating online assignments, etc. And he is trying to find an app, extension, or site that will allow them to access it quickly and simply check off that a task was done. Tasks are not assigned to each student. They just check off that they took care of it each day. I've thought about Google Calendar or possibly using a form, but that's a little more involved than what we're looking for. We're trying to keep this as simple and as efficient as possible. Any ideas?
Yeah, so when Kasey and I looked at this, the same word came to mind for both of us, and that was keep, which I think is funny because the word keep is actually in his question. It's in that very last sentence. Keep this as simple as possible. And we said, yes.
He knew the answer all along.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah. So Google Keep allows you to create a note and then make it into a checklist. And so I could see creating a checklist and then duplicating that note so that you've got the checklist for each day. And then in the title, just have maybe the title is the date, and then you've got all the check marks, and then the students could go through and check them off. So I think that would be probably the quickest and easiest, not highly involved type of answer for that kind of question.
Absolutely. And I think just in general that Google Keep is a great place for those daily tasks that you have students repeat over and over again that maybe need some reminders, like, turning in your whatever it is the assignments were, but marking things done in Google Classroom. A lot of those sort of housekeeping things that you have to find yourself for reminding students. I know in my class, a lot of the silent sustained reading activities that we did and things like that. So I think this would be a great solution. But if anybody else has another solution that you think would work better, please tweet us and let us know so we can help Tim out. And thank you to all of our contributors in today's question and answer session. We greatly appreciate hearing from you, and we learn from each and every one of you every time you submit a question.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Okay, so from the blogosphere, Kasey and I have some things to share, and the one that I wanted to share with you was written by Shaelynn Farnsworth. Now, that name may sound familiar to you because we did have Shaelynn on the show in episode 13. It was using G Suite to improve writing. And so right in that same vein, Shaelynn has published a post on her blog that I really like, and it's called From Topic to Thesis: Teaching Students to Write Argument. And so she says that in her classroom, she's found that students struggled when creating a thesis. So she used this method that she used in college, and so she kind of outlines all of the different parts. So she says stuff like, state what you're going to study, what questions you want to answer, how will the answer to the question lead to better understanding of the larger issue, how is it misunderstood, just all of these really good questions that students can ask themselves as they're trying to establish that thesis. So So if your students do any sort of writing for you, I definitely encourage you to go check this out on Shaelynn's blog. And of course, we'll have a link to that in the show notes.
Yes, bless you, Shaelynn, for doing that. Teaching how to write a thesis is one of the hardest things in teaching writing, so thank you. We loved having her on the podcast. She always has so many fabulous things to talk about. I have a post that is combining the power of Google Classroom with YouTube. So just talking about some ideas for different ways that we can directly use YouTube in our assignments with Google Classroom. You know, and there's a lot of different ways and different ideas. Obviously, sort of tagging off of the whole writing idea, videos can make great writing prompts. And so actually, John Spencer has a great video that I included in this post that you can use to help spark some creativity, and you can even use it to spark discussion. Lisa Highfill had a great little Make You Think playlist that she shared with me that I added on there. So some great things to add there. And then Lisa also shared a great little HyperDocs and YouTube combination presentation that she did. So just another way to sort of merge all of our favorite things about Classroom and HyperDocs and all kinds of fun things. Now, I love to see student announcements that are videos. I don't know, Matt, about you, but I love watching the kids create these and share these, and how awesome would it be to put these in Google Classroom so that they can be referenced later. And I put one in there that I found particularly interesting and creative and fun. So lots of ideas for that. And, I think that's the power of combining all of G Suite together. So, and I think that's why we love doing this podcast, is there's just so many great ideas out there, and we have a lot of fun doing it and a lot of fun talking about it.
Well, there you go. Visual thinking, Google Drawings. Hopefully you've got some practical ideas that you can start using in the classroom right away. And I know there's a ton of links in those show notes, so if you haven't checked those out, you probably ought to. And this is, for good reason. This is one that Kasey and I absolutely love, is the power of Google Drawings.
Yes, Google Drawings is an amazing tool, and we hope that everybody is walking away with a whole toolbox of tips and tricks and ideas for the classroom.
Yeah, so until the next episode, any ideas that you have, anything that you've got to share with us, be sure to share it with us on Twitter on the GT Tribe hashtag. And until then, we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks for listening to the Google Teacher Tribe podcast. Keep up with every new episode by subscribing on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher, and by visiting GoogleTeacherTribe.com. Get in on the conversation on Twitter by using the hashtag GTTribe. Until next time, keep harnessing the G Suite power, and may the Googles be with you.
Haha. Yeah. At least I haven't done my blah blah thing. So there you go. There's one. All right. Yeah. Just today. Apparently that's the extra twist that I'm bringing. So.